But before our break, well, there's some more tech coming, but aboard another tech platform I am so excited about. You're going to be hearing from them twice today, actually, is Viable. This is Franklin, one of the co-founders of Viable. And this is a finance, tech, and AI platform. Now, one of the greatest, well, brands don't realize it, but actually one of their greatest challenges is understanding what's happening with their finances, why their cash flow can be so tough, how they're going to scenario plan. And I think because brand people who work in brands often focus on product, and then they don't necessarily realize that actually the finance part is so key. One of the things we did when we first started Bolt Digital, which made us kind of different from other agencies, is we basically built P&Ls, started showing brands and understanding how their cash was moving about. We've got some spreadsheets that we're pretty proud of, but they're all being completely usurped by Frank and his Viable app. So I'm super excited about this panel. Welcome, guys. Let's get everyone introduced. Franklin, do you want to go first?
Hi, yeah. Sorry. Hi. Hi, everyone. I'm Frank, one of the co-founders of Viable. I suppose I'm not from a traditional finance background like my co-founder Henry and lots of our investors and other people we work with. So, yeah, I suppose I've had a slightly different perspective on things coming into fintech and finance, and sometimes that's good. And that's me.
Amazing. Trent, do you want to just introduce yourself and tell everyone a bit about your brand?
Yeah, hi, I'm Trent, CEO and co-founder of Kirk. We're basically a bioscience company that's created a brand, really looking to create a natural plant alternative to ibuprofen.
Amazing. Rosie?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Rosie Spate. I am co-founder and MD of Equi London. We are a nutritional supplement company. We've been around for about 8 years, and we've got a very unique, very special approach to supplements, which I think 8 years on in a competitive market space still holds true. We're omni-channel. We're mainly D2C, but we work with the likes of Harrods and some high-end spas and QVC. We've never taken external funding. And so besides director's loan, 8 years ago, we've grown the business on retained earnings, which has meant that we have been quite risk averse, annoyingly so, over the years. And since meeting Viable, all of that has changed. So I'm looking forward to talking about that more.
Brilliant. And welcome, Roxanne. It's so lovely to meet you. I came to your store opening the other week.
Oh, thanks so much. This is very loud. Hi, I'm Roxanne from Roxanne First, and I founded the fine jewelry brand Roxanne First. This is our 5th year in business. We started with online. We opened a shop about a month ago on Walton Street in Knightsbridge, and we also work with wholesale partners like Net-a-Porter, Matches, Liberty, Selfridges, kind of all of the majors in the UK. And we're starting to look at growing into the US.
Amazing. So these three have been specifically chosen for this panel. As I said, Viable are going to be, again, talking later with some really impressive CFOs. But why we wanted these three guys to talk is these are your proper brand founders, okay? Not finance people, not performance makers, but people who've created products and then come into this world and had to figure all of this out. So Trent, I know you've had a few brands and you've said this is the first time you've got proper visibility on finances from using Viable. Do you want to just share with everyone your experience?
Sorry, before that, just a show of hands, who is a founder of sort of an eCom business in the room?
Who's not keep your hands
Who's
up.
ever founded an eCom business? Yeah. Okay.
And who's not a performance marketer? Just put your hands up. You're a founder and you're not a performance marketer. Yeah.
Yeah. So look, one of the biggest challenges we face as founders is when to say yes and when to say no. And sharing with these ladies, we've all got extensive backgrounds in corporate and multi-channel businesses. We've learned cash flow, and you've grown yours without
the hard way.
Funding. Well, yeah, the hard way, because it's the hardest thing in business, and it's the single point of failure. So most failures are down to cash flow. So I learned this at uni. I studied finance and then I got into brands. I wasn't really a finance guy, but I've always known that that's the biggest chance I've got of failure. So I have, over the years, developed systems and so many different spreadsheets to track so many different things because I had fear of that failure. So working with Frank and Henry in Viable, it's a cheat code. to what I've spent 20 years learning and what I spent on average a day of my week doing and managing. I think I've cut that down to about an hour. And that's because I know exactly what my bank balance is every day. I know what's going to go out. And so when I talk to my performance team, okay, what are the budgets this month based on performance, retention, acquisition? I can say no when sometimes I want to say yes. And I just know it was the right decision. And that's what these guys have worked on.
Is that because of the scenario planning abilities or the daily live updates or both?
Oh, it's the daily live updates, but it's how they've built this, because I've got my Shopify feeding into my Amazon and all of that's coming through. And they're all different sort of things. Like direct to consumer is a very attractive business from a cash flow perspective because you're essentially taking the money before you supply the product. With Amazon, that's not the case. But then we've also got obviously very high acquisition costs and very sweet retention. So all of this goes into play, and I'm full supply chain. So we make our product, we import things through. So we've got a pretty complex business. And all of that tracking is brutal. And I've got great accountants and I was sort of trained in that, but they don't know the level of detail of direct to consumer. Good accountant is a very, very sort of widely skilled person and understand compliance and stat accounts, but they don't quite understand the day-to-day on this. So what they've done is pulled it all through, running some pretty impressive models and then projecting it out. That gives me confidence.
Rosie, what was your finance? I mean, you do have a background in finance.
I do.
don't you?
So
Yes,
prior
you do.
to this, I worked as a trader and in equity sales at Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan. And I was part of a big business build out within JP Morgan in the algorithmic and automated trading space, which has obviously lended itself well to growing an eCom brand. But it was funny, the timing that we met, because I was actually on a Goldman Sachs 10,000 small business growth course, which is like a mini MBA that they do with the University of Oxford. And part of that was sitting down and writing out 3 quite ambitious growth targets or growth plans. And I remember sitting there and just thinking, I've resisted investment all these years. How am I going to do this without investment? I need to go out and get some money and give away some equity. And literally that week, I was introduced to Viable, and we fast forward a year, and I've been able to execute, which I know is a silly corporate word, all of my growth plans without raising external money, thanks to the work that we've been able to do together, thanks to the visibility that I get live on a daily basis from Viable, but also the planning, the cash flow management, the cash flow projections, the accurate live cash flow projections that you guys have created. And we're on for triple digit growth this year. We've expanded into the Middle East, across Europe, bringing out new product lines. It's been fundamental.
Rosie, what does that ultimately come down to? Is that visibility for you, like in terms of, because it must have been the case all along. So you're saying the money was there all along to do what you wanted to
The money was there. It's cash flow management. We've got a range of about 15 products with about 60 elements within each product. So our lead times are really bitty, and we were managing this on Zero, which is also bitty. So I don't feel like I ever had a true window into the cash situation of the business. We're also in a very volatile, competitive digital space. So I would put an order in for stock and I wouldn't know if I would have the sales or the stock in 3 months' time. You know, I was doing it all on the back of a fag packet with Zip, which basically Zero is. And then these guys have pulled it.
There's no one for Zero in there.
Sorry, Zero, but you are. And, you know, we now have a platform that we can log into. We see all of our sales, our ROAS, our CAC, our LTV, our cash flow projections, which, you know, you were talking about spreadsheets. I've got so many spreadsheets. They go out of date within a day, right?
Yeah.
You know, and managing that as a full-time job in itself. So this has allowed me to make decisions and take risks that I thought I would have to go and dilute my business to do. And, you know, I think that's pretty phenomenal.
And how does that feel to you then?
Amazing.
So I've known Rosie for years, right? And she was one of our early clients, and she's done so phenomenally well building this brand without investment. So that's just absolutely fantastic to hear. I'm so happy. You can see I'm like,
Thank you.
Yeah, amazing. So Roxanne, tell us about you then. What were you doing in terms of your brand? I know you've just opened a shop, but you started off as an e-commerce brand, didn't you, purely?
Yeah. I mean, I think I echo Rosie said it extremely well. And I echo exactly everything she said. I think what I take most from working with Viable, so I also did the Goldman Sachs 10,000 small business. And I also am a brand of tomorrow with Walpole.
Yes, same.
Yeah, so that's how I met Viable. But I think what I take from it the most is just peace of mind. And I feel like Henry, because our direct contact is Henry, who's over there. He's like an angel, basically. And I think finance is such a big part of the business. And with us, because our price point is very high, because our jewelry is diamonds, gold, sapphires, and I think we buy in different currencies. We sell to different vendors in different places. There's so much management of currency alone. I think working with Viable has just helped us, immensely, even for my own sanity, which I think is the most important thing, because I think as a brand founder, we do so much. One day I'm on a shoot, the next day I'm speaking to an influencer, or I'm presenting to Harrods. There are so many things that we do, and I'm not going to pretend that I know really what's going on with finance. I mean, I know more now than I did before, but I wouldn't, it's working with Viable is like I'd say
they're kind of like a safety net, aren't they? Because I think as a founder, it can be quite lonely. And I don't mean that in a negative way. It's very empowering to be able to have autonomy to make decisions on your brand, but Viable partner with you, and they really are a safety net. And I, as you say, it's peace of mind, but it's just feeling like you're not going to be allowed to put a foot wrong, whereas left to our own devices we may well. So it's that peace of mind. To totally agree.
And how did it feed into opening the shop? Because I understand from these guys that it was like you were able to identify areas of cash. They are able to identify cash flow, and that supports the decisions you're making.
Yeah, I think I was a bit nuts to open a store because I've also never raised any money. It's all been self-funded. And I think I was insane to think I could open a shop and do a fit out without raising any money. But somehow I'm still here and the shop is open if you'd like to come and see us. So I think working with Viable and with Henry, it's like literally, I almost feel like it's a counseling session. Twice a week, I'm like, Henry, can I pay this invoice? He's like, well, maybe they can stretch it out a week longer. Maybe you can just pay this one and not pay that one this week. It's like that at the moment. But now I feel that with the planning that we've put in place with Viable, and also visibility, being able to see everything, being able to see all of the money coming in from our wholesale accounts, etc., and planning, because a lot of the time when I supply to, say, a Net-a-Porter, there's no prepayment. We actually get paid. I mean, I want to say, like, Henry will know this better than me, but when they place the order, it probably takes about 6 to 8 weeks to produce, and then once it's delivered to Net-a-Porter, it's then another 30-day terms that we get paid. So that's a long cycle for us to wait for, like, pretty significant amounts of money. So having Viable tracking that and knowing when that's coming in, and not writing things on Post-it notes or on the back of envelopes being like, what are we owed this week? Can I do this kind of thing? It's just pretty great.
And I think that's that sort of state of like uncertainty is when we see a lot of founders in the whole time where they just don't know what they can and can't do, because they get their management accounts like after the month's ended, and by then you're in the next month anyway. So it's like time's already moved on. They don't know when they don't know when money's going to come in, and they're getting asked to spend a lot of money, because all brands are being asked to do this, do that, basically spend money. Frank, that was they were very positive.
Incredible. All very inspiring entrepreneurs, absolutely.
But let's talk about some of the actual financial challenges that brands face in terms of, because this is not like, these guys were not finance people, so therefore they needed support with their finances. This is like brands face an unbelievable mix of financial challenges, which lots of them aren't aware of.
Absolutely, yeah. There's growing a DTC brand. The finance side of growing a DTC brand is just really, really hard. There's no way around that and some of the challenges. The approach that we've taken really to building products to help solve some of these challenges, and that'd be things just like working capital, having to pay for inventory and marketing before receiving revenue from sales. And if you're multi-channel with wholesale, B2B customers, payment terms, long cash cycles, that becomes more challenging. Costs are volatile. Facebook ad accounts all of a sudden just get switched off, and that happens to tons of brands these days, it seems. But the cost of acquiring customers can change dramatically from month to month. The cost of goods, raw materials, operational costs, warehousing, fulfillment. There's so many moving pieces. It's so hard to stay on top of.
And all of those are variable costs normally, yeah?
All variable costs, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's really challenging. So our approach to building products, firstly, is just being caring deeply about our customers and solving these problems. And sometimes, especially in the early days, that involves doing things not in technology, as crazy as that sounds, being a technology business. So an example of that would be, we went live at the first version of our product was a connected financial model. So providing real-time P&L, balance sheet and cash flow information. And on the back of giving a cash flow forecast to our customers, it was really clear that some of our customers needed money. And they were great businesses, great products, profitable and growing, but just based on whether things like long lead times on inventory or being multi-channel and having payment terms, they needed working capital. So we quite early on we kind of sat down and said, okay, we need to really help them solve this problem. Instead of just saying, here's your forecast and off you go, we actually went around and started to look at options for them, went and sourced different types of finance. We went through multiple application processes and really started to understand that process. And actually, it's really inefficient, really arduous, quite cowboyish in a lot of cases, the way that some of the lenders, deploy capital. And really through all that, we understood how we could solve the funding challenge by, first of all, partnering with an aggregator of lots and lots of financial products and making that available to our customers more seamlessly. And that's also leading us on to something called embedded finance. So we're building finance options into our product so that, let's say there's a 100K supplier invoice comes through, it shows up in the cash flow. We want our merchants to have the ability to either say, yes, I'm going to pay that now, or click of a button, spread that out over 6 months. So this is the direction we're going in. And for us, it all comes really back to caring deeply about customers. You mentioned actually the point about accountants and the kind of delay on information coming back from accountants. I think sometimes looking at old problems with fresh eyes and being a new technology startup and building products gave us that ability. And there's lots of advancements of technology around the time that we started. But to us, it was absolutely crazy that people should have to wait a week after the month closes to find out how they did, to find out how much money they lost, how much money they made, whatever the kind of outcome is. But why should you have to wait a week? And if you ask an accountant why it takes a week, they'd say something like, well, we have to chase up all the invoices, we have to post the invoices into Xero or QuickBooks, we have to reconcile transactions, then we have to get that information out of QuickBooks or Xero into a spreadsheet, we fill with it, and then a week later we'll send a report back to the founder. That's nuts. That's absolutely crazy.
Who has that as their finances? Who is that? That's the norm in their business. Yeah, so quite a few people.
So all this information sits online in systems in the cloud, and really, that kind of process. What we realize is that accounting platforms like Xero and QuickBooks, they're great for accountants and they're great for compliance. They're absolutely awful for e-commerce founders, because the information, once it's been posted in there and once information is reconciled, it's literally out of date immediately because everything moves so quickly and there's so many moving pieces. So we very quickly started to work around accounting software, so connecting to source data, tagging literally every single transaction in and out, mapping it to accounts, and creating real-time finance measures outside of accounting software. And so that enables us to give information to founders like these guys so that they can have that real-time finance information. So that for us was real-time management accounts. And this is kind of getting into the weeds of how we build products and what we do, but the really interesting stuff is what it enables entrepreneurs and founders to actually go and do. And so that's things like making investment decisions on marketing, opening a retail store, launching new products, launching new markets, new sales channels. This is all the stuff which makes a meaningful difference to their business. And all we're doing is trying to give them the information and the tools in which they can go and do that stuff.
And I know the AI element of it is in development and progressing, but essentially you have a vision whereby people will be able to talk to the AI about their finances in the same way they would their FD. So Roxanne would be able to say, can I open my shop? Is that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I suppose there's, again, the timing of which we started meant that we could take advantage of lots of developments with artificial intelligence and machine learning. And there's kind of two sides to that in our product, really. One is more on the data side and being able to tag lots and lots of information at a very granular level and automatically map it to accounts, like I've just mentioned. So that's more the machine learning side. And then there's more of the front end side of artificial intelligence, which is what we call chat UX. And really, something we believe strongly is that the future of all enterprise software will be chat UX. So, the days of building manual reports and pushing buttons and systems is going to go away. And ultimately, people, when viable, and we're building this is, a journey for us. But, at some point in the future, Rosie and Trent and Rocky will be able to, instead of, logging into a system and looking at a report, be able to, ask questions like, how much cash do I have in my bank, and just instantly have that interaction with their data and ask questions which is meaningful to whatever they're doing. They could be in the back of a cab and on the way to a meeting and just quickly get information.
Amazing. Well, we are going to a quick break now, I believe. Let me just check the slide. Yes, there we are. So quick 15-minute break. Then coming up, we have more great stuff. We have our creative session. And I won't do a spoiler alert. Well, actually, I will. We've got CRO. We're talking about reviews, UGC. So we'll see you all back here in 15 minutes. And we say a massive thanks to these guys who will all be around if you want to speak to and ask questions.